Welcome, everyone.
Hello.
This session is a topics talk on a topic for the coming year, building green.
And hello, my name is Sid. I'm from the state of Texas. I'm here with Robin Boswell from New Zealand and Brenda Darnell from Kentucky. And we are happy that you are here and joining us today. We'd like for you to register your attendance by just putting your name and your affiliate. And if you want to put your division, that's also helpful. Like you could put SID, Middle Division, TX for Texas. Put that in the chat, please, so we can see who's here with us today. Should we wait a minute, Debbie, or do you think we should go ahead and go?
No, I think you can go. It's 3 past already, so.
Hi, Colleen. Where are you from? Several of you are back for more punishment from us. So we're happy to have you. I'm going to share my screen. I've created a new, another s'more for you, and I will put the link in the chat in just a minute. Building green is a fascinating topic. I have been working on it for several weeks now to create some curriculum and activities for the Texas kids. So I'm really excited to share with you. Remember, this is building green, which is different from the topic we had a few years ago, which was living green. And by coincidence, I happen to wear green today. So I have created a s'more, and I'm not going to go through everything on the s'more because I know how intelligent you all are, and I know that you can read, and but I will share the s'more link with you in the chat in just a few minutes. But one of the things that I did in the s'more was I created just a short PowerPoint, usually 5 to 8 slides, that and I used the descriptor so that you could get a visual and an sort of an understanding of what the topic is all about. And so that is there. You will have to download it on your own desktop if you want to view it. By the same token, we believe, we meaning affiliate directors just as a whole, that a good place to start when you're studying all topics as a new topic, especially, that you should start with vocabulary and definitions to that vocabulary. So the International Office offers their own vocabulary in their curriculum unit. These are just some vocabulary that we pulled from our study of the topic. This is not the official vocabulary from FBSBI, but it's a good place for you to start building your vocabulary and knowledge about the topic. So you can download these vocabulary and definitions too. So today, in the previous topics presentations, we did activities, and we're going to do some activities again, but I want to share, I'm going to use a PowerPoint that we've created, and I need to know, can you see the PowerPoint? Pishoy, can you see it?
Yep, I can.
Yay. Thank you very much. In this PowerPoint, it gives us the option, and I'm hoping it's going to work, for you to type directly into this PowerPoint. We're going to see if it works. And if not, we'll use the chat feature like we have been doing with other topics talks. So here's our Building Green PowerPoint. We're going to start with an activity called attribute listing. Does anyone know what attribute listing is? Oh, I hit my mouse pad. So attribute is another word for an attribute is a characteristic. So if I ask you, what are the attributes of building green? What would you say? You can just tell me orally, or you can place your answers in the chat. What are the attributes of building green? Does anybody have an idea? Okay, by having this PowerPoint, I can't see the chat at all.
Okay.
So
I've
you
got-
have to, you and Robin have to be in charge of that.
Okay, the chat's right here. Okay, they're coming in using sustainable materials.
Using sustainable materials, outstanding answer. Excellent.
Environmental awareness,
Environmental awareness,
no water pollution,
no water pollution. I think that building green is a direct outcome of what we want without pollution, but the two with water pollution and building are not directly related. However, it is important to know that when builders, manufacturers, architects are designing buildings so that they have a green future, they want to be very careful that they're not polluting the air, the water, and the land around them.
implementing more ecosystem aspects to our lives.
Implementing more ecosystemic aspects to our lives. What a really good vocabulary word that was.
Not being wasteful,
Not being wasteful,
saving animals,
saving animals,
considering greenhouse gas emissions, clean energy,
using clean energy, excellent, and limiting our greenhouse gases, and also our fossil fuels goes hand in hand with that.
saving more trees,
Saving trees, excellent, because right now, I don't know if you're aware of this, I'm building a house, and lumber or wood that is used to build houses is in a shortage, especially in Texas. I don't know about the rest of the world, but there is a lumber shortage. And so getting lumber to Dallas, where my house is being built, and getting it at an economical price and the kind that we wanted was a bit of a challenge, because due to the pandemic and other factors, not as much lumber was produced. So there is a shortage, and some of the housing prices have gone up tremendously due to the costs of the shortage of lumber. Okay. Anybody else have an idea that I haven't? Oh, more renewable resources. Excellent. I am excited for my new house. Absolutely. I'm retiring as the Texas director. I'm still going to be volunteering for them, but I'm retiring and moving closer to my children and their families and my grandchildren. So you've listed excellent attributes. You had great vocabulary, and you were very astute in your brainstorming. So attribute listing is finding new variations of those attributes and trying to explore them as we problem solve together. So we first identify the main attributes in the topic or the problem. So when you study attributes, there are several ways that you can make notes about them. You could create a web, you could create a grid and put all of the building attributes, you could put all of the energy attributes in another column, you could put all of the sustainable materials that you hope people are going to use in a third column, and so forth. I'm a pretty right-brained person, so I often like using a web and creating a lot of balloons on it if I'm brainstorming and listing attributes. Or you can just create a list. It doesn't matter what your preferred preference is, but I would encourage you to start listing some of the attributes. So here's our prompt for today. How can we build a green house? Green not meaning the color, but meaning energy efficient and eco-efficient and environmentally friendly. So I'm going to ask you to choose a subtopic that's on the next slide, and I'm hoping this works. It says you can type directly into the slide and everyone will be able to see it. I had a friend help me create this, and he says it's going to work. If it doesn't, we'll use the chat feature. Okay, so we need to be careful not to delete anyone else's ideas. And you guys were great at this and all the other activities that we've done previously, so I'm not worried about that. And Feel free to add suggestions to posted ideas. So here's our subtopics. And this is sort of written as an underlying problem. How might we increase this use of sustainable materials when building our greenhouse so that natural resources are better conserved? So traditional materials such as wood, cement, and brick and metal are either non-renewable or difficult to sustain. So that wood I was telling you about, after many years, if I built a wood deck, after many years, it could possibly deteriorate and might have to be replaced. And then what do you do with the old rotten wood? Maybe you could use it to burn it in a fireplace or a bonfire, but outside of that, really, it doesn't have a lot of other uses. So it's difficult to sustain it. Many synthetic materials, such as plastics and composites, are petroleum based, or they're petroleum derivatives. Those are also non-renewable. So I want you to think of some ideas of how you might increase the use of sustainable materials when building our greenhouse. And it says more than one person can work on the slide at the same time. All right. How might we increase the use of sustainable materials when building our greenhouse so that natural resources are better conserved? So I'm going to ask, I can't see all the names. Give me a name of somebody.
Right here.
Lauren, can you type something next to idea 1 and see if it works? Or Pishoy? Anyone? Can you type into my screen?
I don't think so.
I don't think, I was wondering if because we were on Zoom, it couldn't be. Okay, so we're going to have to use the chat feature, and Miss Boswell and Miss Darnell, I'm going to count on you to help me get the ideas. So each of you try to give me an idea. How might we develop sustainable construction methods to build our greenhouse in order to reduce the impact on the environment?
Here they come. Use recycled plastic instead of wood.
Oh, excellent. Use recycled plastic instead of wood.
Here.
Reduce heat loss through roof, walls, and windows. Synthetic materials which are made to decompose naturally with no chemical byproduct. Oh, that's great. Excellent ideas. Use compost made into bricks and blocks. Is that possible? That's a great idea. Solar panels for power. I like it. We need to do more extreme weather testing to make homes use less energy. Oh, that's a great one, especially after this last winter. We in Texas don't normally have severe weather, and we had severe weather in Austin, Texas, where I live, and I was without power in my house for 5 days, and it was extremely cold. And I had to go stay with a friend because not only were we without power, we were without water. And it was very difficult. Use plants like bamboo because it is much faster growing than other trees. Oh, great idea. Mud brick houses made with clay and hay. That's almost like adobe, like we use in New Mexico, where I grew up. There's self-healing bricks with bacteria. How? What a fascinating idea. Collect the rainwater in large 500-gallon bins. That's a great idea. That's about 10. Excellent brainstorming. You guys have listed some excellent attributes on methods to create more sustainable methods to build a greenhouse. So let's see what our next subtopic is: sustainable energy. And we may have listed a few of these in the previous one, but that's okay. In what ways might we reduce our dependency upon the traditional electrical grid to power our greenhouse in order to reduce fossil fuel consumption? So some of you came up with these already, solar panels, etc. The majority of electricity production in the world relies on non-renewable resources. Small-scale independent power production is thought to be one of the best options for sustainability. Reliance upon a single power source for your home is not recommended. You should consider different energy productions for different areas of your home. So, outside of solar panels, because we already had that one, I would like for you to brainstorm ways we could reduce our dependency, or list attributes of ways we could reduce our dependency on the electrical grid to power our greenhouse.
They've already started.
And you've already started. I love it.
Collect the rainwater. That was one.
Collect the rainwater was one.
Make sure construction waste is thrown away responsibly.
Oh, that's an excellent one. Make sure construction waste is thrown away responsibly. That's really a good one. I toured my house in progress last week and showed Miss Brenda, and there was piles of trash everywhere. So that's a great one. That hits home with me.
Sun ovens.
Solar ovens, sun ovens. What an interesting idea. Close or turn off those lights. Excellent. We can use organic ways to create heat and energy to power individual buildings. That would take some careful planning, but it would work. You're exactly right, because when you compost, it does create heat, and that's why compost heaps have to be turned periodically. And usually there's a machine that turns the compost for you.
South-facing windows.
Oh, good thinking. South-facing windows.
Unless you're
In-ground
in the
heating.
southern hemisphere. If you live in the southern hemisphere, it's got to be north-facing windows.
Okay, thank you for making it global. I appreciate that, Ms. Boswell. I never having been to visit you yet in my life. I hope to one day. I would know that.
Geothermal.
Geothermal energy, of
In
course, in ground. It's called geothermal. Absolutely. Add that to your vocabulary list, geothermal. Anybody else? Let's see. Use more natural sunlight, wind turbines on the roof. That's a really neat one. And if you look in my PowerPoint, there are actually some buildings, I think they're in Singapore, that have wind turbines between buildings to help them power the buildings. So I encourage you to, I have some pictures in that PowerPoint that sort of, I found some interesting use of wind turbines. This filter the water you use so that the sewage systems don't need as much maintenance. That is really important. And I'm going to admit to you freely, I am not using gray water as much as I should. When I was without power, I of course used gray water. Gray water means like you would have a bucket in your shower and you would collect the water as you that doesn't come off your body, but the extra water that just falls away during the shower, you can collect that water and then pour it into your toilet, or actually pour it into your washing machine to wash your clothes. And it's a very economical thing. And someone yesterday mentioned that they turn off their shower as they lather their hair because their hair is long and thick. Reduce as much energy loss as possible so less is lost and more can be recycled. Yes. Depending on the location, underground places are usually cooler. That's true. Here in Texas, we don't have a lot of basements, but I know in Kentucky, where Miss Darnell lives, almost every house has a basement. We don't have basements here in Texas. Do you have basements in New Zealand?
A lot of people have basements, but not for, it doesn't make any difference to the temperature here. It wouldn't be any cooler down below.
It wouldn't. That's interesting.
No. And we don't get that hot in the summer most of the time anyway.
Interesting. Composting toilets save a lot of water. That's And or I am having in my brand new house, they're called low flow toilets and low flow shower to help reduce the water usage. And I live alone, so it'll be okay. But I do think all of your ideas are fantastic. So let's see.
Living off the grid.
Living off the grid. I don't know if any of you've ever watched it, but there's actually a TV program called Building Off the Grid. And I've watched that show in preparation for this topic, because it's people who go into the backwoods or into the mountains and just build their own place and live without power and live a green life. It's interesting. So you've already mentioned some of these, and you'll see that a lot of these subtopics overlap. And but we're still brainstorming attributes. We're still listing our attributes. And in what ways might we improve the energy efficiency of our green home so that the house is more sustainable? Appliances are constantly increasing energy efficiency. I don't know if you've seen the commercial. I watched it recently that a dishwasher uses less water than it does most people use to hand wash their dishes, and if they're an energy efficient dishwasher. Or they tell you nowadays not to pre-rinse your dishes, just to put everything directly in without rinsing, because that's where we use a lot of waste. Can we insulate our home better? Before we move forward and I ask you to brainstorm again, I want to tell you about a CMPS project that some students in Texas did several years ago. They were concerned about saving energy, and they collected 2-liter Coke bottles, those clear plastic bottles, took the labels off, and they drilled a hole in the bottom of each bottle and ran the bottles over one long pipes or long dowels. They used PVC pipe, it was plastic, but they built a mobile greenhouse that they could move. It was built onto a trailer, but the sides of that greenhouse were built out of recycled plastic Coke bottles, and so, or soda bottles. And we say Coke in Texas for everything, whether it's Dr. Pepper or orange or Fanta. But they had used those 2-liter bottles to create the walls of their greenhouse, and they built it onto a trailer so they could move that trailer to different parts of the town, and different people could go in and work in this mobile greenhouse. And they were growing fruits, vegetables all year long, tomatoes, peppers, and the walls of the greenhouse were made out of plastic bottles. Also, you might want to Google it. There's an interesting thing that I found when we studied ocean soup. There's a man that's created, his whole house is created out of recycled plastic bottles. He's created a floating island out of recycled plastic bottles. Just a side note. So our next attribute activity, pardon me, it says, in what ways might we improve the energy efficiency of our green home so the house is more sustainable? Again, you've already thought of some of these, but can you think of ways that we can insulate our home better? Right now, most insulation is made of fiberglass or sometimes synthetic materials between the walls to insulate homes. Let's see if you can come up with better ideas. Thicker glass on the windows to trap the heat. That's an excellent one. Or at least energy efficient windows. I think all of the windows in my new house are what they call double paned. It's two panes of glass, which is equivalent to your answer. You can use your trash as heat, only certain ones, of course. Good thinking. A sheep wool mix. I need to hear a little more about that. Tell me about sheep wool mix as insulation.
That was from Lauren.
Lauren, can you expand on that, please, or elaborate a little bit?
She could type it.
There is a cold climate housing research center in the University of my hometown, Fairbanks, Alaska. They test insulation and windows in homes during the winter. How fascinating. What a really cool career. We've had that. Vertical gardening. And if you Google building green, you're going to see a lot of those pictures. And I'll show you a couple when we go back to my s'more in a minute. A sheep wool mix would be great for New Zealand's economy. Wool is an extremely good insulator. It is for clothing, so it makes sense. And that would also give a boost to the sheep farmers, I would think. That would help, it might help the economy, especially for the scraps. Different materials for roofing, where so much heat is lost through the roof. It's an excellent idea. Also, it depends on what color of roof that you choose, because dark color like black attracts the heat and holds it in. So that's not great in the summer for Texas, but it is good in the winter. Vertical gardening is really a cool thing. When I went to a farm, they were shearing the sheep and it was really warm. And basically the sheep wool mix is wool and fabric scraps. What a great idea. I just had fabrics. We were cleaning a closet so I could move, and I found a lot of fabric scraps. Wool is hard to sell these days. Too many synthetic products. That's interesting. I didn't realize that. Okay. Let's move on. How might we increase the sustainability of our greenhouse so we can maintain comfort? This is really important. We all want to live in a comfortable house. We don't want to be cold. We don't want to be hot. We want to be comfortable, but I believe that all of us want also to be very conscious of living green and helping our world and our environment. So many sustainable practices of today require that we have to sacrifice time, money, and comfort. What features in your home do you want, and how can we install a green version of them? Do you want it to be climate controlled? Do you want to use certain kinds of furniture or technology? Think about that. What's important to you if you had a greenhouse? What would you want? And at the same time, how could we increase the sustainability of a greenhouse? I want to hear what kinds of efficiency. Good. Win-win. I like that response. I'll be honest. I wanted internet accessibility in my new house. In fact, the builder is installing what they call a smart home. And I have like an iPad on my wall where I can control my temperature, my lighting, my alarm system, all in one wall unit, if you will. And because my home has internet, USB plugs in some of the outlets around the house as well, which that's kind of a new thing, or new to me anyway. Furniture in a recyclable case, that's good. And made out of biodegradable material so that it can degrade once it's you're finished using it. That's a great idea. An underground living space because it stays cool in the summer and warmer in the winter. If you have water pipes warming on the side of the house with the hot sun, you can create a heat exchange system. The colder water and air can be heated by the sun and then distributed back throughout the house. Wow, that is true building green, I would think. I would want to have no trees cut down, but instead have plastic circles around my house that would have trees in them growing within lots of room. That's a fun idea. Other green technologies can be used for heat when the sun is not shining. That's good. Solar panels have storage in them, by the way. The sun doesn't have to always shine. Same thing with wind turbines. They typically store the energy that they collect or they create.
Like
The location of the trees is important depending on making sure they're not too close to the house, but also can provide shade or help cool the house. That's another great thinking. All right, functionality. How might we maintain the functionality of our greenhouse so that it meets the needs of a 21st century family? We live in a technological world, like I was just talking about, and our homes will need to adequately allow us to be connected. Think about the small daily activities you perform in your home. How can these be green? How many times a day do you use an electronic device? If you had virtual learning this last year, it was almost 24/7, it seemed like. Give me some ideas of how you might maintain the functionality of a greenhouse. I think you've really been sharing great ideas so far today. There are houses in Australia built into the limestone in the ground. This helps keep the house cool. Awesome. I stayed in an underground motel in Coober Pedy. It was fantastic. No need for heating or cooling. That's a great idea. And that would certainly be sustainable, I think, as long as there were no earthquakes, right? I'm going to move on because we're only have about 12 minutes left. How might we improve the sustainability of our green home so we can include pets? How many of you have a pet? And I'm going to tell you, our dogs are part of our family, and so we need to make sure, or can we have a pet friendly home that is also green? That's a good question. Most of the requirements of owning a pet depend on unsustainable practices. So is there a way to think about your pets and make this your green home sustainable? Let's see if we can you have 2 cats and a gecko. Cool. No earthquakes in Australia, but plenty in New Zealand. Yep, we've heard of them. What are some of the special things that you have? Not in this house I'm in now, or not in my new house, but in my former house, I had a doggy door so that my dog could come in and out during the day while I was at school or at work. And I feel like we lost a lot of heat and cooling around that doggy door because it wasn't completely sealed. Although it was a great thing for our dog, we had a big dog, so we had a big door. It would be cool to have an in-ground pet house for outside so they can be out but still be cool. That's a great idea. We do have some people who have built houses into hillsides. Check out Hobbiton and have a look at the Hobbit houses. Double layer the doggy door. Why didn't I think of that? Birds have a habit of being attracted to red blinking lights on tall towers. They can fly into buildings, towers, and wind chargers. If the windows in a big building were not as reflective and another type of light was used instead of red, more birds might be saved. That's interesting.
I'm interested, you're talking about your house, that I live in a new house. I was the first person to live in here, and we didn't have any say about how the houses were built because it's a retirement village, and the houses were designed by an architect who lives way down south where the weather is cold. Up here is the hottest part of the country, so they added on these gigantic sunrooms that have got 16 windows and a double height, and they're so hot in the summertime that we can't actually go in there, and in the wintertime they're all full of condensation and mold, which is not good in a brand new house. But
No,
you've
it's
got to have an architect who understands the climatic conditions that they're building for.
So that's a really good point. Thank you, Robin, because architects are involved before the building process ever starts. And I had to have an architect come in because I wanted to change in my house. It involved the shower, nothing else, but it had to be approved by the architect and the plans had to be changed. So architects have to make those plans and share their ideas long before the actual building piece takes place. So that's interesting. Anybody have any ideas? You're sharing some things that you can't have pets. So that like plants when you have a cat. And there also is that you can have cat fur everywhere. And I'm allergic, so I can't have cats. But that's an interesting thought to try to make your home sustainable for both your pets and the family. Okay, so that was my slideshow. I ended almost on time that I wanted to do that. I want to share with you in the chat the s'more link. And now I also want to hear from you. Does anybody have questions or comments about this topic or anything that they've learned today and they want to share that we haven't discussed?
What I find, sorry.
No, you go ahead.
So what I find kind of funny is that it's called Building Green, but the whole point is to lean away from industrialization and non-renewable energies and lean more towards renewable resources and sustainable energies. And it's a funny contrast in the title itself. I find funny.
I think you're right. And I'll be honest, the topics committees struggled a bit with that when we were writing the descriptor, because we wanted to be sure we, let me get this off of him. That we wanted to be sure that we were using the topic in the right way. In addition,
We've got a question.
we have a question.
From Michelle. What are some challenges to building green that aren't cost related?
Oh, that's a great question. Michelle's question was, what are some challenges related to building green that aren't cost related?
I wanna know if you could put this-
I've got Pishoy's direct message and I can't get it off. Can you do it?
Go to everyone down at the
Oh,
bottom.
I see it.
Click on that little arrow right there and do
Perhaps while they're doing that, I'll tell you where this topic came from in the first place, because it was actually a topic that I suggested. And there might even be some people from Singapore here, but I went to Singapore 3 or 4 years ago and I hadn't been for a long time. I went in the 1970s. And when I went in the 1970s, they talked about Singapore being the garden city. And then when I went back again in 2016, I saw some amazing changes. And they're now talking about Singapore being the city in a garden. And so many buildings there are built green and they've got trees, huge trees growing on the roof, growing up the sides of them. Everywhere you look is green, and they really, really care about making a city that is sustainable. So that's where the original idea came from.
Thank you, Robin, and how fascinating. And I also included a picture of Singapore in my PowerPoint, in descriptor PowerPoint as well. And if you haven't, it's one on my bucket list, I'd love to go. But I would encourage you to at least do an internet search about Singapore and its city of gardens or garden city, because it's just, they're absolutely beautiful. And I am so envious that more cities don't take that into consideration because cities are growing. I mean, research shows that, most of our cities are growing at a faster rate than rural. Many people are moving out of the country and moving to the city.
We've got a new person coming in.
Okay. I have to admit something. I gave away 2 door prizes yesterday and I forgot to email those winners. I've got to do that today. But we do have a door prize for today's session. And Miss Brenda is shaking up the names. She's written down your names on little scraps of paper. And today's winner is Colleen. Colleen, you have won a free section of the FPSPI topic unit for Building Green. And I will send you the link to that. If you will stay on this meeting as soon as we go and share with me your email address, I will send you your link. And I apologize if you're one of the winners from yesterday. I forgot to do it last night. We were so excited to go out and have ice cream that I forgot. So I will make sure that those all go out this evening.
And the ice cream was delicious, by the way.
Oh, not fair.
Somebody said now they want ice cream. It's a famous shop here in Austin called Amy's Ice Cream, the kind where they mix in stuff, you know, fresh fruit or cookies or gummy bears, whatever you want. It's a fun place. And it was yummy. You're right. All right. I would like to know, does anybody else have a question or comment? And I have to tell you,
They're congratulating everybody.
you guys have the greatest ideas. I hope, Debbie, that you captured all these answers from the chat, because those suggestions and those building green ideas and attributes were phenomenal. I'm so impressed with your creativity and the way you think. And we have one more session this evening on the topic of personalized medicine. And it will be
At the top of the hour.
at the top of the hour, whatever time that is, in whatever time zone you are. But I want to thank all of you for coming and joining us. And I will see you in 16 minutes. Thank you for sharing, and thank you for coming. I totally enjoyed your comments today. Oh, you're welcome for the presentation. We enjoyed doing it. And I put the message in the chat, and if you haven't gotten it, here it is.